I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting for Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, do we have any late items?
There are no late items, but there is the second delegation scheduled for this evening has had the council.
Okay.
So it can be removed from the agenda, and we are working to reschedule at a later council meeting date.
Okay, thanks. So that's the, which one's the second one?
I believe his name
Dave Mercer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so. Okay, so if I get approval of the agenda as amended, please. Councillor Van Alphen and Councillor Betts, all in favor, and that carries. It's the consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from consent? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to remove attachment A, the UBCM 2024 resolutions responses.
Okay, so that goes down to 11, item 11. Anyone else? Any other items? Get a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. Councillor Van Alphen and Betts, all in favor. That carries. And go straight to my report. So yesterday, November 11th, I had the honor of laying the wreath on behalf of the District of Summerland at the Public Remembrance Day ceremony at Memorial Park. This was the first Remembrance Day to feature the upgraded cenotaph with an additional 31 names that was relocated to the entrance of Memorial Park across from the newly established Veterans Memorial Square. And I actually have a prop here. I want to show everybody. This will be going up in Veterans Memorial Square. Thanks. So one of them is already up, the one on Wharton. This will be the one going up on Main, at Main and the new square. But obviously won't be going up until the washrooms are put in and everything like that. But we've got it. So well done. Thank you for Councillor Van Alphen for bringing that forward.
Nicely done.
And then just on Remembrance Day, the community came out in numbers, as they always do, to hear the rolls of honors of the fallen and to pay our respects. And so many thanks once again to the Royal Canadian Legion Summerland branch for continuing to organize this important ceremony. On November 7th, I was joined by Deputy Mayor Traynor and Councillors Barkwell, Betts, Patton, and Peake at the official groundbreaking to mark the start of construction of the Okanagan Food and Innovation Hub. The event was held at the future Food Hub location on Highway 97 at Jones Flat Road, and it was attended by 180 people, including Agricultural Minister Lana Popham. The state-of-the-art facility is slated to open in May, and it will specialize in value-added processing and the distribution of local crops. The development of a regional food and innovation hub based in Summerland is one of Council's strategic priorities, and it's something successive councils have worked towards for the last 10 years. On November 6th, Councillor Barkwell and I attended the regular board meeting of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, where Area A Director Mark Pendergraph and Penticton Councillor Campbell Watt were reconfirmed as board chair and vice chair for the remainder of the term. The board also agreed to hold a referendum on April 11th for residents of Sage Mesa regarding the RDOS's acquisition of the Sage Mesa water utility and approval to borrow $33 million for capital upgrades. Much like our own Recreation Center referendum in 2023, the board was in the difficult position of not being able to secure grant funding until the referendum results are known. On October 29th, Council began its budget deliberations with a review of the 2026 financial plans for the water, sewer, and electrical utilities. It is a council priority to invest in our core infrastructure and an average rate increase of 6.32% is therefore being proposed in order to maintain healthy reserves for future infrastructure renewal, as well as to cover inflationary pressures. The utility budgets will be presented and residents can provide their feedback at a public open house to be held this Thursday, November 13th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Riga Arts and Cultural Center. On October 24th, Deputy Mayor Trainer and Councillors Pete, Barkwell, and Betts joined me on the ice at the South Okanagan Events Center for the ceremonial puck drop at the Penticton Fees first Summerland night, for which Summerland residents received 25% off the price of their game ticket. We were told that the V's intend to make Summerland Night an annual event, and that next year the V's players will skate out wearing special Summerland warm-up jerseys. Maybe they'll auction off, I don't know. Finally, it's with much sadness that I mentioned the passing of Peachland's Deputy Mayor Keith Tom. Keith was well known throughout the region for his kindness and diplomacy, and he'll be missed by many of us. Councillor has written to Peachland Council with our condolences. That's my report. CIO Stat, for yours, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Pleased to do so. We are seeing continued dry conditions in the region and in our own headwaters, which might necessitate further preemptive actions to ensure reservoirs have the best probability of filling in the spring of 2026. The community is currently at drought level 3, and although irrigation shut off, which happened the week of October 13th, and more recent moisture in the watershed have helped curtail the rate of decrease in stored water, our reservoir level monitoring indicates that levels remain low. We'll keep the community informed as we learn more and if further actions are taken. Special thanks to those who are able to come out and provide your feedback in person at our recent open houses for the official community plan. If you were not able to make it or you'd like to reiterate your perspective on the draft plan, please take time to provide your comments on the project website, which remains open until Friday. That's this Friday, November 14th at midnight. The plan will shape the future of our community and serves as a roadmap which will guide Summerland's growth and development for years to come. The easiest way to access the feedback link is just to visit the community updates section of our main page on the district website. Finally, just a reminder that the district staff are working hard to complete many infrastructure projects around the community, winterize parks and public areas, and prepare for key events like the Festival of Lights later this month. As a result, workers are frequently operating in and around our roadways, so please slow down and be considerate for the safety of our staff, who are working very hard at this time and often in the rain or in the early mornings or late afternoon where there are low light or visibility issues. With that, I conclude my report.
Okay, thank you, Council. Any questions for either of us? No? Then we'll move straight into our delegations. And we have one this afternoon, the Okanagan Valley Goose Management Program. And Kate, I believe you're online. So I'll just turn it. Can you hear me okay?
There I am. Hello.
Okay, so
And-
hi Kate.
There we are.
Great. So I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me this afternoon to talk about goose management, which is something I've been working on for many, many years. And I think everyone in the Valley has some opinion on it, certainly. What I will do is share my screen, and I have several slides. Your corporate officer kindly reminded me this is a 5-minute presentation. I suspect my slides are more than that, but less important than the slides are really just chatting about this issue, creating awareness, and trying to, figure a way forward as a community and as part of the larger Okanagan Valley. So let me just share my screen. Now, does everybody see the slide presentation?
Yeah, we see it. Thanks.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I'm chatting today about the Okanagan Valley Goose Management Program. And let me just see how I'm moving forward here. What? Sorry, there we are. Let's go back. Sorry, it decided to do its own thing. So you're getting the super fast version. Okay, I'm beginning. Sorry about my technical. Ah, 1 second. You're seeing me, correct? And not my screen?
No, we're seeing your desktop right now.
Sorry about that. Okay, let's get my back here for you. And we want to run the current slide. Beginning.
We're seeing your slides now.
Are you okay? Well, let's just go with this because for some reason my slide doesn't want to move over. I apologize. So you're getting a less slick version.
Yeah, we're just getting we're not doing the full screen.
Anyway, it's funny. We all use Zoom for years, and now I hardly use it anymore, and so I'm less clever. But I think what's important with goose management is to talk about the origins of the issue, and really the problem has come from well-intended, conservation programs that brought geese to the valley and other areas of BC, southwestern BC. And these geese didn't learn to migrate. So I think what we need to understand is that we're not dealing with a natural population that would normally migrate, but in fact, we're dealing with a population that we have created. And we've also really supplied excellent habitat for as we, create golf courses and parks, and we change agricultural practices, so that we have a population now that has become problem wildlife. And for those of us that manage geese or struggle with geese, we know that this involves things like crop damage. And you just chatted about how Summerland, is really trying to be innovative with agriculture, and certainly geese are problematic to agriculture. And they are problematic to recreational spaces. They create environmental degradation, and they are problematic with health and safety in terms of things like aviation and also water quality. And so that means that a lot of attention goes to mitigation and management, and a lot of resources and economics are spent on geese that I'm sure would be gladly spent on many other things. So goose management has been an issue on the minds of many communities in the Okanagan Valley, and it was recognized as a valley-wide issue in the 90s. And so in the 90s, very casually, sort of ad hoc, a group was put together by largely, parks managers or operations teams, and they, thought, hey, let's work on this cooperatively instead of trying to figure out a solution independently. And they worked with Canadian Wildlife Service, they worked with consultants, and they developed a regional management plan. And this plan is very important because first of all, it's the first comprehensive landscape level plan in Canada, and is still held as the model for how we should be managing, problem wildlife at a regional level. And also from it, we identified some very important aspects that need to be involved in wildlife management, need to be part of a solution. And some of these are things that can be done by an individual community. And some of these things are done by, the group together in a valley-wide way. And so if you look at something like communications, that is something that is much better served if the valley is working, you know, all the communities are working on it together. And there's a standard message, standard kind of, you know, visuals with that so that when people see it, they recognize it. And if there's questions, there's one person or one source to answer the questions so that there's no kind of misinformation. It's always scientifically based. It's always clear. And most of those questions actually come to me, and it means that the burden is off of community staff and even my field crew to answer those questions so that I can always have a thoughtful conversation with whatever comes at me from a person, whether they're pro or against or in between. Another aspect that's important for communities is habitat modification. And this is something communities typically are doing individually because their needs and their park spaces, their waterfront, you know, are quite unique. And so this is an example. When Penticton redid their waterfront, they took goose habitat and goose management into the equation and made a really nice waterfront, but had some very good functional barriers to geese by, you know, preventing the grass water interface that makes it less attractive. Those bushes have all grown up to be a sight barrier for geese, so they don't want to cross over. So it's interesting that communities can, you know, with some planning, with help from me or with other professionals or their own team, try and figure out ways to make their habitats less attractive. Hazing is a very important part and is different for all communities as well. This is an example here on the left of Dennis Ingram of LA Hawk, and he's using his hawk. This is actually on gulls, that picture, but he uses it regularly to scare geese. And some communities have volunteer dog handlers and dogs so that they can take advantage of like, you know, free elements of scaring, because scaring is resource heavy and can, you know, can be expensive. But there's many very responsible dog owners that will happily let their dogs on beaches, and a nice, you know, balance can be struck there. But a big part of population management, as you can imagine, is population control. And one of the largest things that the communities have done together for the, you know, 19 years is to reduce the hatch of geese. And my team has addled, and so that means either shaking or oiling, but humanely prevented the hatch of over 25,000 eggs. So not every single one of those eggs would ever have hatched to be a goose, but certainly half of them would. So you can imagine 12,000 more geese on the landscape, and they're young over years. So it's a very, very effective tool. So even when you're out there and you're really cross at the number of geese, just remember how many geese there could be, although we're always working to improve it. This map shows this past year's nest locations that we were able to access. So you can see we worked from Osoyoos to Vernon, and we try very hard to access all communities, anybody that calls us, any place where we have permission, any place that is safe, that we can access nests and addle them, we do so. Having said that, it's not perfect. And the red dots represent places where we are not authorized. People disapprove of our program. They don't want us on their property. They're worried we'll sue them and we might get injured, all those things. And then the purple dots are places where it's actually just not safe because we're working, you know, on a bluff, or, you know, it might even be something as basic as a construction site or an area where we're just not safely allowed to access. So while we on the left there, we have close to 300 nests that we did access. On the right, we have close to 50 that we didn't. So it's not a perfect system. And this model shows if we were not working on the landscape and if the communities of the Okanagan weren't, had the foresight to put a program like this in place, this shows that the growth curve of geese is off the charts. And the Canadian Wildlife Service, which is the regulatory agency that manages geese and monitors their population, has indicated that there is no reason to think that there are environmental constraints that would stop the growth of geese in BC. The lines along the bottom are what we projected the program to be like, the green line, and where we think the program is at based on our actual monitoring. So we have flatlined the growth quite well, but I would say in this past year, we were seeing some changes that concerns me about growth. Another important population control tool, are there two tools really, are hunting programs and harvest programs. And communities can do this either as a group in the Okanagan or individually, and they can facilitate hunting. So using hunters to do their sport and to kill geese for food. Or you can apply to the Canadian Wildlife Service, thanks to a change in regulations, to do a harvest program. And this is what Vernon has done this past summer. So the first is allowing hunters into your jurisdiction so that they are able to legally hunt geese. And Soyuz and Oliver have done this at different times. And this is an example of the first page of Oliver's application for bylaw exemption. So if you are a hunter, you need to fill this out to show that you are qualified, that you have the insurance, that you are responsible, and then you can hunt in this allowable season set by the province and the federal government within Oliver. Roundups. This is not a roundup to harvest, this picture actually. This is one where we were relocating geese and banding them in Penticton. But a harvest now is allowed where you can partner with a charity so that if you round up geese and humanely dispatch them following very specific protocols set by the province, that the meat from the geese can be used for food. In addition, you can also partner with a First Nation who is allowed to have the food as a traditional food resource. And that is the approach that Vernon took this past summer. And they had a very successful roundup partnering with the OIB and building really nice bridges. The people that worked on the field together, I understand they really, they just really came together and had a successful time, which is great for communities. And then the geese, all the meat is used as food. So there is no waste, which is a new approach. Of course, for goose management and all things, there are challenges. The top left is a nest that we cannot access because it's in an osprey platform. You talked about drought. There is a drought in the interior, across Canada actually, that has caused a decrease in wetlands that is seeing waterfowl change their traditional distribution so that they are now interfacing more in areas where we haven't necessarily seen them. Combine this with habitat loss from things like fire or even development, and you'll see that you have more geese in smaller spaces interfacing with people, so that although we probably have the same number of geese that we have had for the last 20 years, we are now sharing smaller space. So this is a problem with management as communities increase and habitats change. And so the bottom left corner here shows a development along the waterfront. So now it's no longer available to geese, but also with these wetlands in here, they've made it beautiful for geese. So it's important when you're planning to understand that wildlife love the same things we do, and to maybe put in a little bit of mitigation like fencing or shrubs, or just to allow this to not be goose habitat and to not increase a problem. One of the problems that, not a problem, one of the challenges that as a field crew we are having, and in monitoring all waterfowl in general, is that avian influenza is a serious consideration, and geese are certainly dying right now because wild migratory birds are coming in and mingling with resident flocks. So it's not such a concern when we're thinking about population management, obviously, but what it is a concern is that everybody, all the communities, my team, we work in the field. So it's very important that we understand the PPE required for this kind of work. And we understand that when we're monitoring geese, what we're seeing might be biased by avian influenza consequences. It's an avian influenza. We're working on it with the province on a separate project, and it certainly is a consideration this year. Going forward as a group, so in Summerland, we addle about, I would say, 7 to 10 nests every year. They're largely at the marina and then south of that area on some of the private docks. But I would imagine that there's quite a few more in some of the agricultural areas. And so as a group, you have to think, is addling enough? Are we doing enough in an addling program? What other efforts should be coordinated across the valley? How can we, reach nests or communicate with people better? And then how can we prevent goose conflict, as I mentioned, with the habitats that we have, recognizing that habitats are changing? So those are questions that I think it's really important when we talk about, okay, we hate geese, they're in our way, but we can't just go, okay, I hate geese, but not make any changes to our waterfront. We have to go, okay, geese are bothering me, but what can we do to make a change so that we can mitigate goose damage, and while we are also doing some population control? So I can always be reached anytime for questions, and I'm certainly happy to take questions now. I apologize that I'm a technical Luddite. So anyway, there you go.
Okay, thank you, Kate. I'm sure we do have questions on council here, so I'll just open it up for questions. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. It was a topic that came up at council over the last couple of months from the community, for sure. With the beaches, once they start kind of moving into the area later in the summer, and just what we should be doing about that, whether that's, letting people and dogs onto the beach in the mornings or not quite being sure. My question to you, actually, since you do some addling already in Summerland, I didn't realize. So does the District of Summerland or the RDOS provide funding already to your program, or is this funded from the province or the federal government? How does it work?
So I bid on this program. It's through an RFP process, and I've been really fortunate to have it for quite a few years. This program is administered through the city of Kelowna, and the city of Kelowna, my understanding, goes to each municipality, and I think that there is a formula on a per capita basis. So that, say, Kelowna would be probably doing the lion's share of it, and then as communities get smaller, there's a contribution that is proportionate to the community.
I think Dave can explain the funding if you're interested.
Through the mayor, yes, we do pay the city of Kelowna, who is the contract holder. And our budget for the past few seasons has been $3,000.
Okay, we'll get into budget and see if we can increase it, I guess. Is that good? Yeah. Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. My concern is, and it's running rampant in the Fraser Valley, Salmon Arm. We just had a case in Summerland with the avian flu. Are your handlers or people working with these migratory birds or non-migratory birds, if there's dead ones found, are they being reported to CFIA for testing? So we know, our agricultural community has an idea what's going on. And would it be okay if the Summerland Sportsmen's Association possibly reached out to you and maybe got some more information on harvesting these geese? Would that be?
Yes, yes, that's completely appropriate. And I also have the contacts for the province and for the Canadian Wildlife Service, the federal level, so that if there are questions that I can't manage, then we can move on. Deaths right now, like certainly in the Fraser Valley, we've seen substantial numbers. So most municipalities some municipalities are now doing dead bird collection as part of their sort of parks program. Maybe not necessarily with a parks staff, an in-house staff, but with a contractor. And there are very important ways that you handle the birds. I would say right now, if we're collecting dead geese, we are not handing them in to the Delta for testing, because there's so many now that it's assumed that's what it is. But if we are coming across something a bit different, like an owl that maybe has eaten a goose or another animal, then they are testing to see, is it rodenticide? Is it avian influenza? What are the pathways there? I will tell you, if you are seeing dead waterfowl on your waterfront, first of all, do not touch them. But second of all, be prepared to put up some signage to remind people not to touch them. And also, we are being very careful about, especially for ag, doing boot dips and things like that. So for regular families, it probably just means take your shoes off at the door and wash your hands. But for agricultural producers, particularly poultry, it definitely, and they are aware, it definitely means changing your clothes and disinfecting boots. And when we're out collecting birds, or if we're sampling birds, we are wearing N95s, we are wearing disposable coveralls, and we're wearing gloves that we are changing often. So it's a very sad reality that avian influenza is in the environment this year in a bad way.
Follow up?
Thank you. Thank you for that information. Just a quick follow-up. And I don't mean to sound cruel, I guess would be the word. There's been other situations in the province and in different provinces when there's a problem like this, and this problem's been going on and on and on for many, many years. Has there ever been any discussion about a bounty to encourage sportsmen to harvest these birds, as like I know Alberta, Saskatchewan does the same thing with coyotes because they're a nuisance and they get paid a few bucks to harvest these animals? Is there ever been a discussion about harvesting? We seem to throw money at it constantly for the addling program, but I don't think we're gaining a whole lot of ground. So maybe we need to look at a different approach.
That's actually an excellent question. I and others have had many discussions with the people, and it's done through the Pacific Flyway Technical Committee, Waterfowl Technical Committee, About the bag and about the limits, essentially your hunting limits for geese. And they review them and they set them with population targets in mind, certainly. The waterfowl regulations were updated in 2022, which is great because it has actually allowed more flexibility in hunting and harvest than we've seen in decades. But there's no bounty. What they've done in some provinces with the snow goose situation, where they have designated the snow goose as overabundant, and overabundant is a specific term. They have taken off the bag limit so that you're allowed an unlimited number, because the geese, there's so many that they actually are causing, you know, problems up in the Arctic and things like that. But here we haven't labeled resident Canada geese as overabundant. So they are considered nuisance when they are non-migratory and they are in urban settings, but they haven't given them an overabundant status because of the potential for during hunting season interchange with migratory birds. So hunting only goes up until March 10th. And then we know from that time on, it's birds are down here are nesting, and that those are resident birds, but they don't allow hunting after that. Before that, there are migratory and there are resident birds. So so we have regular hunting seasons, we have specific bag limits, but there is no overabundant status and there's no bounty at this time.
Okay, anyone else? Counselor Trainer.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for your presentation. I live in an area in Summerland called Trout Creek. It's down on the water,
Yep.
kind of the furthest south of, and we have a beach called Powell Beach, and we get like tons of geese there. They go between there and the school grounds. So there's either like 500 of them on the Trout Creek Elementary School like field where they poop everywhere, and then they go over to the beach. And there's days in the summer where people won't even go to the beach and it's a beautiful beach because there's just too much poo and it's all over like, you know, the playground and stuff.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, how do you determine where you do geese control? Like I noticed on the map, and you had mentioned you do it over at the, what's it called? The marina?
The marina, yeah, and south of
Do
the
you guys
marina.
ever come over to Trout Creek at all? And is there anything else that we can do for that area? Just because it is such a problem down there.
Yes, that's a really excellent question, and an issue that lots of communities deal with in the summer. So in a goose's yearly life cycle, the summer from about mid-June to mid-July, a bit later maybe, they are molting. And what molting is they drop their flight feathers completely so that they cannot fly, and they grow in new ones. If they were migrating birds, they would do this right before migration so that they have strong, excellent feathers before they go down to their winter grounds. But here, what it means is that they find their absolute favorite spot, and it always involves water and it always involves grass, so that they can eat and they can flee to protection. They find their favorite spot and they gather in a large flock and they molt their feathers. And once they start to molt, they cannot leave except by swimming. So in an area like Trout Creek and Powell Beach, we do not have many nests. In fact, I don't think we've had nests there in the last 10 years. What we have is a population that comes in after nesting and takes advantage of the beautiful beach, just like you say. So this is an example of going, okay, we love the beach and we love that we can go right from the grass to the sand to the water, but we can't keep that exact habitat combination if we don't want the geese to be there too. So it's about looking at what can we do? Can we do a scare program? Can we put up temporary fencing? Should we put it in a combination of benches and hedges? And how much resource do we want to spend on this? Or do we want to do something like a relocation where we relocate the geese and see if they come back? Also expensive, but these are sort of ideas. Do we want to go straight to harvest? In which case you have to consult with Canadian Wildlife Service to see if they feel like the impact is sufficient enough for that to happen. So it's about going, okay, this is a time in a goose's life where they are going to be here. So how do we prevent them from being here? Or how do we even just reduce them being here so that the impacts are less and we can enjoy the beaches more? That answer, or is that just...
Yeah, no, that's good. I didn't realize that what some of the stuff you had said, so that's very helpful. And that the no nest there, that was also a surprise to me. So that's good. But I think maybe next season we can talk to you more. Maybe, I don't know.
Yes, and this is it. So I really want, people, like, we go up and down the lake all the time. When we're looking for nests, we're looking for obviously the nest and a pair. But when we see a single male, we know that he's off and he's guarding, and there's somewhere within 100 meters of him is a female on a nest. So we look for that as a cue. It's what geese do. It's a biological cue. We haven't had nests in that area for such a long time. As a team, we are allowed to access all public property. We have permission for that. Anything that's private, we need to be invited on. Now, if I see a goose and I think he's on private property, I will chase that down and I'll find the landowner. But for some areas, it may be that a landowner who knows their property so well has a goose nest and doesn't know about our program, or doesn't know that I'm not allowed to access it, or isn't aware that I don't know it's there. So if we can increase, the reach of communication and get people chatting with me about where nests might be, then we can improve that. Having said that, if you have 500 geese, chances are those 500 geese are also using the Peachland waterfront, and they're also, going across to the other side and bouncing around a little bit. And so this is where working cooperatively with, neighbors, you're like, okay, if I want to do a scare program, I want to make sure I'm not spending money to just send them down to Peachland, and Peachland's just going to send them back, or west, or you know what I mean, that kind of thing. So that's where it's just important to be engaging with your neighbors to make sure that you're not wasting resources and doing the most efficient work you can.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So just on that topic, we know, so you mentioned there's nests, a lot of nests around the marina, and I believe there's a high concentration of nests on that man-made island that serves as a breakwater for the yacht club.
Yeah.
So is it better? So we know there's a high concentration of nests there. Is it better to leave it like that so that you know exactly where to go to addle those eggs, or is it better to do something about that island so to discourage nesting there?
That's something that I go back and forth on all the time. Obviously, I don't want the yacht club and the marina private landowners to have nests on their property to be irritated by those nests. But if I know where they are, I can find them. And that means I'm controlling the hatch, of 5 of geese coming out. And I would suggest that those breakwaters, those sort of groins, when the geese are there, I know that obviously people are using their boats there, but I feel that they haven't been aggressive to the point where they are disturbing the users. So at this time, I'm sort of saying, let's leave the nests and let's so that I can get them. We can get them and it's easy. If this was a school ground, I would give you opposite advice to that, because you don't want kids and geese. Geese can be aggressive, and you don't want that mix. And I would say, let's make sure we can, prevent geese from nesting by covering up the habitat or doing whatever we need to do in that space. and send them elsewhere, and I'll go find them elsewhere. But I think like it's efficient and safe to have those geese in the Summerland breakwaters.
Okay, thank you. So I have Councillor Patton and Councillor Markle.
Thank you, Worship. How would you get involved with your scare program with the dogs?
So I don't run the scare program. It's been done by each community. What we have done in the past, though, is train, or not even train, but work with handlers so that they understand what's allowed and what's not allowed, and what's, and sort of vet handlers to make sure we know that they're also not going to be problematic in parks or on the waterfront. I think Peachland is doing one right now where they have dog owners that have little bandanas, and they are recognized as volunteer dogs, and the dog owners are allowed to have those dogs off leash at beaches at specific times. But something else that is a good tool for communities is having, and it's tricky because you don't want people to take advantage of this, but if you had off-leash hours between, say, like 5 and 7 in the morning, and maybe 7 to 10 p.m. in the evening or something like that, sometimes that can be a free tool, so that you can take advantage of people, really, and dogs, to keep the geese off. And then sometimes that's enough during busy seasons to move the geese away, so that by the time the geese is populated by people, they've already been discouraged and they aren't going to be on the beaches for the day.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Markle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have maybe a couple of questions. I'm particularly concerned about Powell Beach as far as Summerland is concerned. So I like the idea maybe of having it off leash up until, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the morning or something. Do you think, are you familiar with Powell Beach?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
It's a really broad, it's a $1 million beach that doesn't get used because of the problem with the geese. And would the shrubbery and stuff, the plantings that you showed in the other pictures, do you think that would be effective at all at Powell Beach and keeping them off the the sandy part? Or would it be kind of pointless to do any landscaping there?
I think that it's a good tool, but not a miracle. So I would say that I would say that shrubbery needs to be at least 3 feet for it to be effective, so that it stops the line of sight. I think what's important is to make sure that you have the shrubs so that they cannot see the grass, because you don't want them to be seeing forage, or if they're on the grass, they can't see the water, so that they don't feel safe because they don't have a place to flee. And I think that when you put in habitat enhancements like that, that you can, like, I think it would be appropriate, but I think it would be appropriate to not just rely on hedges, but to do a little bit of a mix, like the odd either like benches. But when I say benches, I find benches are quite good because then people use them, and then the people themselves are a little bit of a deterrent to the geese, right? So have a little bit of a mosaic there, and then and break up that sight line using sort of at least 3 feet, and I think that would be good there. I know it's quite expansive, so it may even be that you choose an area. You're like, okay, this is the area that we're going to protect, and we're going to sacrifice a little bit of an area where we're going to let them go, so that we have a really great area for users that you actively, keep geese out of.
Okay, thank you for that. I know that even a very short fence protects a really large area, that they just are kind of lazy and don't fly.
They do have lots of choices and they can't fly, right? In that summertime from May, June to May, July, they can't fly. And if they have their goslings with them, which of course we try to reduce, but the goslings can't fly until they're fully feathered. So it does restrict where they're able to go.
Oh, okay. I just thought they were lazy.
They are, yeah, as well.
But my other question is, I saw on the island in a farm, they had wires strung up about at least 10 feet high and maybe spaced in 30-foot squares, just a thin wire that you would hardly notice. And that was effective for goose control on all of their organic farming land. It
Yes.
was about a 10-acre parcel. You've seen that before?
Yes. So putting a thin strip and sometimes even hanging mylar, like shiny tape from it, because what it does, it disrupts them being able to land. So that's a different time of year. That's, you know, in the spring when, you know, the crops are starting to grow, and it's in the fall when birds are moving around. So the string technique, if is excellent. It's not obviously great if you have thousands of acres, but it's excellent for organic farms, boutique farming, that kind of thing. It's been a really good tool.
But it wouldn't be applicable for these geese that can't fly right now. Yeah.
Not for the summer geese who are molting, because they are going to be coming in from the water. So you can string an edge. So the string I was talking about before is kind of over top of crop, but you can string an edge so that they at sort of chest height, so that they, and again, hanging something shiny from it can be good. And that can, if you only want a temporary fencing, you don't want permanent, you don't have the resources, you don't want to have it like that all year, that can be a good tool, and can actually might even be a good sort of pilot project to test. Hey, are these geese going to come up if we've got something that is creating a barrier? Will they go somewhere else easily?
So that could be an option for a public park as well, doing something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in Trout Creek, you have the ones molting, but you also at other times a year, you'll have, like, I'll be playing tennis down there sometimes, and you see the whole Air Force coming in and landing right in the field there, right in the park. So maybe it's just that time of year you've just put some of this temporary foil stuff out there. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there. If there was a solution to geese, we would know it, right? Like, and that's sort of the sad truth of it. But I think it's important to try. And with geese also, they get used to something, and if there's no consequence, they do begin to ignore it. But if you can try different, you know, have a rotation of a few different tools in your toolbox, I think you have more effective, like you just have more luck.
Okay, Councillor Betts.
So thank you. If we're able to move forward with, say, I think doing something like a harvest would be very challenging in the middle of July at peak tourist season at Powell Beach. Doesn't matter what time of the morning. I don't think that would go over well. But if we were to do something just for the sake of discussion, if you're looking at allowing hunting licenses for reducing the population of geese, how do you go about doing that? How do we as a municipality help to make that happen?
So hunting is regulated provincially and federally, and the hunting regulations come out every year, every 2 years. They're published by the province, and they're done with the feds sort of setting the bag limits. Licenses are sold, and regular hunters purchase those licenses. You can look in the hunting regs to say, okay, hey, where does Summerland fall, and where are hunters legally allowed to go? Now, this is where you guys come in, because you can be like, right, okay, where are they legally allowed to go? Where do I think an additional area might be that's safe for them to go? And can we do can we set that area for hunting, and then similar to Oliver or Soyuz, allow hunters to hunt there if with a special permit that they would get from you guys, with if they fill out. I suspect that you have a firearms bylaw in place, and so they would need an exemption from that bylaw. They would need to show insurance, and an excellent way to do that is to work with the local clubs, because chances are the hunters are insured through a local club and have and they all know where they like to hunt, or they all know each other, and so the first thing might actually to engage with a local club and sort of test the waters to see where people would be interested in, before you spend a ton of time going through with it, and make sure that you've got a hunter population that can help you with this.
Thank you. I find that that was really constructive and specific. So thank you for that. I think from my perspective, I think that's a conversation that staff should have with the Sportsman Association, because the Adeling program is successful to a certain degree, but it seems like the population is growing and this could be an opportunity to reduce. I think it's a better opportunity than perhaps adding shrubs all along the length of Powell Beach. That's just going to come at a large cost. So I just see that could be a first path forward, is a discussion with sportsmen.
Could we do, is there opportunity to do more Adeling here if we increase our budget?
I would.
Or do we addle, do you already addle everything there is to addle?
I would suggest that we found everything that we can find, but I think that, and I wouldn't. I feel like asking about budget to me is a conflict of interest. Not really, but I feel like we really do our best on the ground. Like my crew, we've been doing this for a long time, and they're like we're pretty good at it. But having said that, I think where the improvements could lie is if we get access, or have conversations with properties that we haven't been on before. So I think that isn't so much a budget thing, but in the spring, I do public service announcements, and we're on the ground and we're chatting. But I think that maybe there's probably reach that parks people have, or that that Summerland staff have that I don't have, that maybe that would be a good sort of in February to start talking about this, and to see if we can have a bit more reach. And even if we go on properties and we know that we don't find nests, at least we know, and we can sort of cross it off and go, okay, what's next? So I think that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, it certainly should be able to take advantage of our communication channels. We can work with you on that. And so are there still migratory geese coming to the Okanagan and leaving, eh? So they haven't.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like thousands. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really informative. We'll have one last question from Councillor Trainer.
Okay, one year we used, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago at Powell Beach, we used these like they look like beacons
Yeah.
that went in the sand. I don't know where they went or what happened to them. I do recall that they had some effect.
Yep.
Do you know if those are still around, or who makes them, or how we get them, and what they're, I just thought that might be something. What you said, you should have many tools, so I thought maybe that could be one tool, but what's your opinion on those?
Yes. So there's really mixed opinions on that product. I think it's called Geese Away. City of West Kelowna has used it very successfully. I would say Penticton didn't enjoy it. I feel like if you move them around, that they are good. If you recognize that they are dawn dusk kind of effective, but not daytime effective, that they are good. I suspect that they were vandalized or stolen, because they somehow attract that sort of activity. But you can buy guards for them. So West Kelowna, shoot, it used to be Ralph. He's at I can't remember the new parks guy at Kelowna, West Kelowna, but they quite like them and have had success. And so I think it's a case of maybe trying a couple, borrowing a couple, and just seeing would they be a good tool, because I know people have mixed opinions on them. The product itself, I think that they warranty them so that you can try them, and if they're not successful, that you can return them, because they whoever the company is, and I think it's called Geese Away, they feel quite confident that they're a good product.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate. This is great, giving us lots of food for thought.
More than 5 minutes, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. It's question period doesn't count to the 5 minutes, so.
Good. Well, thank
So-
you very much.
Okay, thank you. And we'll be in touch, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we're moving on to our public comment opportunity for any agenda items. Anybody want to make comment? Don't see any, so we'll move straight into our business items, capital projects update. And that will be Joe Mitchell, please. Oh, okay, CEO Stat.
Yeah, starting on this, Your Worship. So this is, as you know, the report that we have on every council agenda, just to give council a bit of a dashboard on our major projects. Of course, we're coming to the short strokes on the Prairie Valley Road project, but definitely our two other key projects being the clarifier and Wharton Street, with the idea that we're trying to operate from a no surprises atmosphere, although we cannot promise there won't be ever any surprises because we don't know what we don't know. And in that vein, we are starting to see some little change orders that are adding up on the clarifier, and I'm sure Jeremy, our Director of Utilities, will be talking about that. And we'll do our best to keep council appraised of any and all developments. Also, come springtime, around March, when we start up the Victoria Road South project to the Oval About, we'll be adding that project in as a project that we track as well. And with that, we'll turn it over to these fine gentlemen.
Thank you, Graham. Through the mayor, I guess we'll start out with a quick update on the Wharton project. So since our last meeting 3 weeks ago, the key progress on the electrical front was there was a significant amount of electrical work done on Wharton between Kelly and Rosedale, and then across Rosedale and down Smith Street. So most of the electrical's done in that portion, and we've actually managed to pave a good majority of that already. They are continuing with the electrical all the way down Smith to Armstrong and then down to Prairie Valley. So that electrical work will happen over the next couple of weeks, and if the paving season is still open, those areas will get paved as soon as they're finished and out of the ground. We've also been doing a significant amount of landscaping, for the most part on Wharton and a little bit on Henry. This will continue over the next couple of weeks, but there are a couple of areas, as we've discussed before, that we won't be able to landscape, and there's not going to be a whole lot more work done until the washrooms go in. As many of you saw yesterday at the Remembrance Day ceremony, there is an area that is still in dirt. It's still got dirt there. We're leaving it that way just because the crane's going to come in with the washroom and they're going to have to maneuver all over the place, and we don't want to put something permanent on the ground and then have the crane have to maneuver around it or us have to move it. So you'll still see a little bit of landscaping work done in that the new Veterans Memorial Square area, but nothing that's over a couple of feet high because the crane has to maneuver around there. Once the washroom comes in, which as of right now, it's slated for early December, it's coming from Quebec. We will get that in, and then as long as the weather cooperates, we'll carry on with the rest of the install and try to have that one done as soon as we can. Outside of that, yeah, it's going to be a lot of landscaping, little bits of landscaping all on that corridor over the next little while. We are keeping Wharton between Kelly and Victoria closed for the time being, just to allow the trucks to be able to work efficiently to get that landscaping in and to avoid the use of Main Street for any of the construction equipment trying to work on the Henry Avenue area. So once we get to a point where that's not needed, they'll open up Wharton for everybody for vehicle traffic. Any questions about Wharton?
None? Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm concerned about the sale that's going on at the Art Center. So do you have any idea on the time frame that you'll be off of Wharton with the other work getting done?
Good question through the mayor. So the majority of the work across from that sale is actually done. The paving's been completed. There's just a little bit of work putting in a switch that's right around that ramp area. So we've actually done the work under the ramp. So they can, when they go to do that work, we'll be able to still use the ramp. There might be a time when they have to sort of close it a bit, but we'll always try to allow people to get through that ramp and up into the facility. So the heavy equipment work is for the most part done, except one day they'll have to crane in the switch. They'll have to crane the switch into that location. And that day, we'll just have people on site that'll allow sort of escort people through the construction area just to make it work. But yeah, for the most part, the work's done in that area.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Councillor Trainer.
I'm not sure if this is exactly the right time to bring it up, but I'll just make a comment on it. We have been getting feedback from some people in the community about the crosswalks at Main Street and Victoria, just that they're not bright enough for drivers to see. And so I did talk to our CAO about this, and he recommended that council discuss that at budget time in terms of allocating money towards possibly painting them or some kind of something to brighten up the intersection and whether we want to move forward with that or not. So I just wanted to mention that to council because it was something that I was concerned about as well. Otherwise, it looks great. Like, I think it's a fabulous intersection, but I do think it needs a bit of a brightening from my personal opinion. So I just wanted to say I'll bring that up at budget.
On that, I noticed just driving around town, you know, when you approach crosswalks, sometimes you will see the crosswalk sign on one side, and sometimes you see them on both sides of the street. So I'm wondering what goes into, you know, deciding whether you just have one or two crosswalk signs, and whether we ought to be having two signs at Victoria and Main.
Yes, great question. There are going to be signs on both sides of the crosswalk. They're supposed to be on both sides with the little pedestrian pointed towards the direction that they'll be crossing the road. So those signs haven't come in yet, but they will go up as soon as they come in. I've asked them to actually move two of the other ones into that location. But yeah, that bright signage is what the vehicles see when they come up to an intersection. So having it on both sides is important. On basically all crosswalks, it should be on both sides unless it's a stop sign leading up to the crosswalk, then you don't have to have it. Sometimes you do, like we do in Main Street, but we'll be removing that one. So there's a couple of signs. There's also a bump sign missing. So we're just getting the last little bits of things in as we go, but we will have all the signage for that intersection up. I'm hoping this week, but as soon as that shipment comes in.
Thanks. Councillor Parkman.
Thank you, Worship. Further to Councillor Trainer's comments about the crosswalk there at Victoria and Main, everybody's got lots of ideas of how it could be improved. I'm not sure which are the best ones, or maybe all of them should be done, but isn't there money left? You know, it's an $8 million budget. There's a contingency fee. Painting with luminescent reflective paint shouldn't cost too much. So isn't there room in the budget to do something, the current capital budget, to finish the job nicely?
Yes, through the mayor. So there will be contingency left over at the end. For that project, for that intersection, we have put a significant amount of safety improvements in there, including reducing the crosswalk width, so it's less crossing distance by adding some bulb outs there. Those bulb outs also raise the pedestrian profile so you can see the pedestrians on either side there to help with that. We've also obviously got the small speed bumps and the speed hump signs ahead that are going in there. As the mayor pointed out, we have the pedestrian crossing signs. Those are the ones that vehicles are supposed to be looking for. The crossing on the ground, that's for the pedestrian that comes up and looks down at the crossing area. We've also got a change in condition of the ground material. So we go from asphalt to concrete to then paver stones on top of that. And drivers, when they see that, they recognize when there's a difference of the ground material, typically they slow down. They think something's happening there. This is an intersection, so you slow down for that. To the point of painting, we can paint on the pavers. It's something that can be done. You have to put some sort of a primer onto it, and then you can put a reflective paint onto it. I talked to the company, the reflective paint, it'll last 1 to 2 years, and it's an expensive paint to place on every couple of years. So it's something that we can do if that's the direction that council wants to go. The way we were looking at it is this was designed by a professional transportation engineer to be safe for the users in that area. We almost got all those in place. The signs are still to come, but those will go up in the very near future. Take a look at it through the winter and see how it's performing. And if we feel that it needs some additional work, then that's something we can push towards. The paint going on right now at 0 degrees by the time we get it in or whatever it might be, it's not going to be ideal for staying power through this winter. So it is something that we can consider if that's what council wants to move forward with.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a conversation actually with Councillor Trainer and the CEO when it first came in, and I kind of thought, oh, it looked okay. But since then, the white marks on the tiles or the white tiles, they seem to have gotten a lot darker and less visible. And then, half the community thinks it's okay, you should know, and half the community thinks that, it's not good enough. There's a lot of crosswalks that have an X before them for the driver to warn the driver. They have an X paved on a bright X paved on the road before the crosswalk to warn the driver there's a crosswalk ahead. I think that's one of the solutions that we could have that doesn't involve painting those fancy tiles, but there's probably others. So we've got to do something, and I would think that it would be covered in the capital budget. I would hope.
Councillor Chair.
I could be wrong, but I believe the X's are typically for school zones, like approaching school zones, but I could be wrong. At least that's how it is in Trout Creek. I was going to save this for budget, but if we're discussing it now, I think, I looked at the similar intersections in Penticton that are raised up and have pavers as well. They do have the lines painted on them, the white lines. And even though we all know it's an intersection that you're approaching as a driver, it's still another cue that I need to slow down. And I think because it's such a main intersection and because there's a kids dance school there, I think that's why people are concerned. I did talk to one business owner from the physio place there, and she said that that's one comment that her customers have been making is that the intersection is too dark for pedestrians and drivers. So anyway, I think that if we painted just the marks of the crosswalks, the rectangular markings that go across on the road, I think that would brighten up the intersection. And even though there are all the safety features that you said were there, I think that subconsciously as drivers and as pedestrians, we're all used to seeing those white marks, and they're just another tool to keep people safe. And we've invested so much money in this project and it looks so good. And that's a feedback that I've gotten so far, is that we just need a little bit more. And so I think that from my opinion, I think that's a reasonable thing to do is to just paint those, again, the gray colored pavers within the red pavers that go across the street.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I really feel that sometimes we're premature in how we need to change something, that if you leave it for this season and into the spring that we'll have a better idea. People get very worried, especially when the lights changed, like we've gone on daylight savings time. So we're into the sort of gloomy thing at 3:30, 4 o'clock, we start to change. I'm inclined to live with something for a little longer before we put a lot of changes in it. So that would be a suggestion I would make.
I'm inclined to agree. Let's not do anything knee jerk. This kind of reminds me of when the roundabouts first went in. Everybody. Anyway, anybody else? Yeah, Councillor Betts.
Thank you. I think I'm of that opinion with Councillor Peak and the mayor, just that I'd like to see the full implementation of all the signage in place and actually have drivers have the opportunity. I know people are expressing concern. I really do understand that. It was different. Even when I saw it the first time, it wasn't as bright as we're used to, right? So I noticed it too. Not going to say it's not, but all the signs aren't in place. And so I'd like to see the project completed and a little bit of time before we make significant changes. That's my opinion.
Okay. So one other thing on Wharton. So we got through Remembrance Day, which is great. So now we have light up coming up, and so are we working with Destination Summerland so that they're planning and for anything that's still with the square work still going on at the time, and we can accommodate that. So.
Yes, absolutely. We have been working with Destination Summerland and we'll continue. I think we have a meeting tomorrow in that regard as well. So we're keeping up to speed. They're not relying on the washrooms being here. They won't, if they do show up early, they won't be installed to a condition that we could allow people to use them anyway. So they're bringing their own washrooms in, and we will have that construction zone sort of roped off so people don't wander into that area.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on to next project.
Moving on to Prairie Valley Road, really not much of an update because that project's for the most part done. Just still little deficiencies that we're taking care of, but quite minor at the end of the day. The only thing that we just wanted to bring up is over the next week, it's along the same corridor, but it's not really the same project. There are some 6 to 7 pole replacements happening from our electrical crew. So there will be single lane alternating traffic along that corridor. Again, not really part of the project, but part of the same corridor. So just for council's awareness.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. There have been some expressions of the activity lane on that area being perhaps a little wider than some people feel is a safety concern. Is there any consideration for looking at making the activity lanes maybe 8 inches not as wide as they are now where we're installing them, so you have a bit of play on either side of the traffic lanes? I'm thinking about Victoria as we're coming up to do that.
Yes, through the mayor. So the lanes, so the multi-use pathways are ideally 3 meters in width. That's what I think it's the Transportation Society. That's what they have asked us to put in. We weren't able to achieve that width for the majority of the Prairie Valley Road project because we have very limited right-of-way there, down to as low as I think 2.3 meters in some areas there. Very similar, the Victoria Road project, we're not able to achieve the full 3 meters. It'll probably be 2.7, I think is the width for the most part along there. So we have narrowed it significantly along that corridor. I guess we could narrow it further if that's what council would like. We've got it's a high use area for bike cyclists and for pedestrians, and that's why they like to have the 3 meter width along there.
Thank you. Perhaps I'm saying it because I want to know if there is interest around the council table for a reduction in the size of those, in the width of the activity lane. Whether you would take it back where the white curb is and you bring it back that much further, where people are concerned with the traffic lane. And there hasn't been an opportunity to speak about it, so this is why I brought it up at this point.
Councillor Sparkle?
So you're speaking about the next year's project, the area of South Victoria that certainly I wouldn't mind reviewing that plan after seeing what was built on Prairie Valley Road. But that's just a long straight stretch, and if it's similar to what's being done on the south end, it'd probably be okay, but it wouldn't hurt to have another look. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. That was my thought.
Probably before the projects get started, it'd be good to have a refresher for us to remind us exactly the work that's being done. We can even do it as part of this major projects update. Yeah. Councillor Chair?
My only concern would be that the continuation of the pathway match the first section that's been done. So Joe, that's the only thing, is that I'd like it to be the same. And then also we got a grant to do that. So would changing it now affect that at all?
Yes, through the mayor. So the design is to match exactly what we've done for that first stretch. And that's also not 3 meters, it's about 2.7 meters along there. So it's not meeting the AAA standard, which is sort of the goal for municipalities, but we just don't have the right of way to have that full amount. We weren't given specific criteria with the grant in what we need to do, but what we said is we were going to be doing multi-use pathways, trying to achieve AAA standard, which we aren't able to achieve the full AAA, but we've done our best to have grade separated and as wide as we can along there.
See us that?
We could bring it back just to show council what it's going to look like and what the plan is. Has been tendered out, and they've been on the project based on existing design, et cetera, but certainly doesn't hurt to show council what the plan was. A refresh also how it's being funded. Lots of grant money has come in since council originally talked about it, and so worth doing that.
Okay, thanks. No other questions, so primary clarifier.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So on the clarifier, progress to date, we've completed excavation for the clarifier, blending box, splitter box, and we are still pouring concrete. Actually, I was down there this morning and they were pulling some of the forms away, but there's still some more concrete to pour on those items. We are also in discussions with the contractor. They're suggesting maybe there's a 2-week delay because of some of the concrete work. But we haven't received that officially from them yet. So we're just in discussions around that. This project, unlike some of the other projects we just talked about, operationally, a delay doesn't really affect the district that much because the plant is still running even with this ongoing. So even if there were a couple weeks slower, there's no traffic shut down. There's really no impact to residents on that. So not a big concern other than our daily costs for running the project and that. But we're working with the contractor. We have some good ideas with them on helping along the way. But for now, things are just sort of chugging along and still doing concrete work. And I think over maybe the next council update, we'll have some more information that's not concrete.
It's contagious. CEO?
Thank you. Just to Director of Utilities, Jeremy, can you talk a bit more about how you're stick handling these change requests and keeping a close eye and personal involvement there?
Sure. So when it comes to change orders and schedule or dollars wise, we have a contract CA, a contract administrator, and that's AECOM. So they review any change order that may come down the pipe. We've had a few for $1,000 here, $3,000 there for some small adjustments, some over excavation and things that come up during construction. And so our contract administrator reviews those, ensures that they meet industry practice for pricing and things like that. Yes, it all makes sense. And if there's an engineering decision that needs to be made, they can make that decision. Then internally, those change orders all come to myself. I review those, give them another check. Yeah, does that make sense? Is that something we want to move forward with? And to date, they've all been very small dollar values, so nothing significant, but that's kind of the process there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. This might have more to do with it budget time, but when you take a look at the amount of concrete work that has been done, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of concrete there. And I'm wondering if it's doable that when we do put these out to tender, that it isn't Summerland first, because we know that the concrete's not coming out of our Summerland concrete facility. And I'm not sure how we can do it. Maybe it's more of a budget talk when we go into budget, but I would sure like to see us come up with some sort of Summerland First program in regards to construction materials. Thank you.
I think maybe CIO has a comment on that.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Councillor Patton. It's an idea that's come up before, but we are severely restricted by the province because of trade agreements that have been signed to not give preference to local companies. A lot of times what we see, local companies can be some of the most competitive bidders though, because they are local. But we can't specifically have a Summerland First type of approach due to the trade agreements imposed upon us by the province.
Councillor Manoff.
No, I know we've had this discussion time and time again, let's Summerland first, but these major projects, 95% of the time, you don't even see porta potties from our local rental company. They haul them in, but we talk about being green and being environmentally friendly, and we have these concrete trucks hauling up and down the highway from Kelowna to deliver concrete to a project here in Summerland. It's a little absurd in my mind, and I think that I appreciate what Councillor Patton's saying. Like, we got to try to do something about this. Let's, if it's a provincial thing, then let's go talk to the province, but let's support our own companies first.
Councillor Park.
Well, it could be a pricing, it could be very much a pricing thing as well as a capacity thing. I mean, you see a lot of concrete being poured across the street here. And this is a big project beyond the usual basements and things that we do. So we don't know the whole story on it. And, when it comes right down to those two questions, and if you go Summerland first, then what's your limit on how much more are you willing to pay to have it bid locally? So the competitive bid process satisfies me.
And we certainly don't want to discourage Summerland companies from getting business in other communities as well. So, anyone else? Okay, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, Community Emergency Preparedness Fund. Fire Chief Robinson, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This request for decision is the same UBCM grant application that I've brought forward at this time of year in the past. The fire department is looking to purchase firefighting equipment in the amount of $29,500. The application for this grant references water intake like supply hose and water tanks, something like a small pool. So that's what we are asking for in this grant application. The equipment will enhance water movement from fire hydrants to our water tenders or engines, to the water tanks, and to our fire hose eventually. I'll keep it short today. Lastly, there is no financial impact to the district, 100% funded. Any questions?
Councillor Pete?
No question, but I'll bring the resolution forward.
Okay, thank you. Could we get that up on the screen, the resolution? Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Betts. Any discussion? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's always hard to argue against a 100% grant funded equipment application. So I'm thankful that you know about it and that you keep looking out for our fire department to improve its equipment opportunities through a through a fund that's available to us. Thank you.
Okay, so no further discussions. I'll call the question. All in favor? There it is on the screen there. And none opposed, that carries. And our last item, we need a motion to receive that for information as well. So Councillor Peak, Councillor Betts, all in favor? That carries. Moving on to the Canadian Protected and Conserved Areas Database. Director of Community Services, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. At the October 1st Council meeting, Molly Tilden and Andrew Banks from BC Nature presented the Municipal Protected Areas Program and encouraged Council to consider registering District of Summerland natural parks with the Canadian Protected and Conserved Areas Database. Council directed staff to work with BC Nature to assess eligible District of Summerland parks and bring back a report to Council for final consideration. Natural areas can be added to the database if they have clearly defined geographical boundaries, achieve in situ conservation of biodiversity, prohibit actions incompatible with conservation, and are intended to be protected into perpetuity. Environment and Climate Change Canada guidance is that municipalities should only register sites that are very likely to remain protected over the long term. If there's a possibility that a site may require delisting in the future, it is not considered a strong candidate for registration. However, should a registered site no longer meet the protected area criteria, it will remain visible in the database for transparency, but the data provider may formally request an update to change the site's status to delisted. All efforts should be made to uphold the integrity of the areas. There is a 75% rule, which means that up to 25% of the registered park area may include activities or amenities that are not compatible with conservation objectives, provided they do not significantly impact the ecological features, functions, or biodiversity values of the remaining 75%. Examples of such compatible uses include trails, playgrounds, parking lots, and other developed areas. If planned or existing amenities that are not compatible with conservation objectives are expected to exceed 25% of the total registered area, the District of Summerland should request the site status is changed to delisted. If such changes are anticipated, it may be advisable not to register those sites at this time. After Council approval, the District of Summerland would be required to sign a letter of consent, which provides BC Nature permission to proceed with the registration as outlined in Attachment 3 of the Council report. This form states that participating in this reporting does not entail any regulatory or policy restrictions for the areas. However, if the use or the management of the area changes in the future, they would need to be reassessed to determine eligibility for continued reporting. The consent letter is required by November 20th, 2025 to be included in the 2025 reporting period for the Canadian Protected and Conserved Areas database. The list of recommended Summerland parks for Council's consideration to register with the database are listed in the Council report as Adams Bird Sanctuary, Cartwright Avenue Neighborhood Parkland, Mount Conkle Park, Giants Head Mountain and Little Giants Head Mountain Parks, Landry Parkland, Living Memorial Park behind the sports fields, Priest Camp Historical Park, Cartwright Mountain Parkland, and Woodbridge Nature Preserve. Attachment 1 of the Council report shows the maps of each location. After Council provides directions on which district parks to authorize to register with the Canadian Protected and Conserved Areas database, the consent letter will be updated and issued to the Mayor for execution. And we also have Molly and Andrew from BC Nature attending by Zoom. Should Council have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Any questions? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, and thanks for bringing this back, Lori. So when I was going through the list, I just found myself having a couple of questions, and so I realized it needs to be completed and submitted by the 20th. So we'll see if we get there. Okay, so first of all, I've got a couple of them. They're just specific questions. Number one being Cartwright Mountain Parkland, slide number 2 on the park map, attachment 1. So I note that it's not all one form altogether, right? It's kind of the area to the south, which is the Cartwright Mountain face. And then when you go around kind of the bottom of the solar farm, and then there's a couple of extra pieces. Can we get this up on the screen by chance, Greg? Yeah, thanks. Screen number 2. Thanks. So I just find because the two, like there's one part that is a large grouping, almost like a rectangle, and the other two are right alongside existing and proposed development. And I'm just worried about having that in, you know, if you think forward however many years, I just want to see proper planning. If we're going to designate it to this like higher level of parkland, I'm not sure about the left side being involved. If you go slide 2, that one. So on the right-hand side of the image, that's the south facing, it's the south face of Cartwright Mountain, but on the left-hand side, you've got these 2 extra pieces that are right alongside development. It's going to be where the proposed eco-village is. It's alongside the approved Prairie Valley development. I just was uncertain about those 2. Can you speak to those?
Yes, thank you for the question through the mayor. So the land that's identified there is working around the eco-village land that has been designated for development for that project. So these are the lands that were identified through that process as parkland.
May I follow up?
Yep.
Yep. So I understand that. I just feel like it doesn't give a lot of wiggle room in the future. I'm concerned about that for both of the pieces on the left-hand side. We have development going on in that area, and I don't want to hamstring our future decision-making. I'm not comfortable with that. The entire block on the right, I am, but I don't know what anybody else thinks.
Okay, thanks. So we have Councillor Trainer, Councillor Peak, and Councillor Barkwell.
I just have a separate question from that. Maybe I missed it, but how come Powell Beach is not included? Powell Beach Park or Peach Orchard Park?
Through the mayor to Deputy Mayor Trainer, I will refer that over to Molly, who did the initial assessment of the parkland. I'm wondering if it's maybe deemed as more not a natural area with a lot of diverse biodiversity values on it, but
Yeah.
Molly, are you familiar? Powell Beach and Peach Orchard Beach, which are grass parklands.
Yeah, we are typically not including beaches just because they get so much recreational use that the value to biodiversity is fairly low. And we're looking for more like vegetated areas primarily. So that was why we excluded those parks.
There's not really much natural about Peach Orchard Beach Park. It's all reclaimed marshland.
Yeah.
So if you're Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I will reinforce what Councillor Betts had to say about the picture you have up right now. I understand this is the part that we're going to designate as reserve. Does it infringe on the likelihood of the development from the other area to the, I don't know, west, I guess it'd be north?
So sorry, through the mayor to Councillor Peak. So this land that's identified here, first of all, we can amend this map however we want. So we can change to just have the right side if that's council's desire. As far as the property to the north.
I don't know about directions. I'm going to say this here. Is that the same area you have concern?
You know what I suggest? I suggest, because we have development happening there, we have eco village plans and everything, that we just don't include it for now. We can include it later once we know what we're doing that on Cartwright Mountain. I would suggest we just remove it for now, which doesn't preclude that we won't add it later, but we just remove it for now. The whole thing, yeah.
May I have a second point?
Yeah.
Okay, if, are these all hectares? Because they don't indicate all hectares. Some of these say 8J and some of them don't. Do I just assume that all the pieces are hectares?
Yes, all the areas are in hectares.
Okay,
That's
they
correct.
should be put in on the report. So Mount Conkle Park doesn't, and Giant's Head and Little Giant's Head don't say hectares. One of my questions is the Priest Camp Historic Park. Is that, and Richard and I were on this, but it was the Heritage Committee. And we received an award, and I want to find out if it's the same area. We received it on a linear park for that area. So I just wanted to make sure it was the same area that was designated, because I can't tell for sure.
And can you just pull the map up for Priest Camp and through the mayor to Councillor Peak? I think you're talking about the Fur Brigade Trail. Is that the linear park that you're referring to?
I'm sorry, it's going back 6-7 years, so I do not remember. I just wanted to find out whether that's what it was. And I don't know if Richard can recall more than I do.
Yeah. And this is just the parkland around where the washroom building is, right at just off the lake.
I can't tell for sure. My other question, if I may, Your Worship, is if we designate these in this manner, does this mean that these properties are precluded from mining?
I can answer that. You would be able to do, like, I don't know what kind of mining you would be doing on these parks that would be less than 25% of the total area, but in the report it does say that you can have activities happening that are not necessarily supporting biodiversity in 25% of the total registered area.
That really doesn't satisfy my question. The provincial government in terms of mining has a really strong mandate to allow it wherever and whatever size they would deem might be usable, so that 25% may not satisfy what I might be speaking to or they might be speaking to. Have you ever run into that in parks in general? Or have
Maybe
you
I could
worked
answer
on
that.
projects before?
So to the mayor, we have not experienced mining in British Columbia in our parks that we have submitted. We generally have submitted parks that are being desired to be kept as parks long term in perpetuity, and there's been no indication that mining would ever occur in these parks. So yes, so we have not experienced that here in British Columbia.
I think any council that wants to mine one of its municipal parks would be not looking not to get reelected. Councillor Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm just going to circle back to my second item that I had concerns about. And so that was item number 4, Giant's Head and Little Giant's Head Park. Obviously the larger Giant's Head, this is slide number 4. The larger Giant's Head makes total sense, but when we're looking at Little Giant's Head, I'm just not certain about kind of the boundaries of where the park is situated in comparison to again, opportunities along Victoria South. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. Just wondering, again, if that was taking into consideration, like there's some right of ways owned by the district already that aren't necessarily developed at this time, but that have come up in discussion, and I'm just not sure that our consultants would know about those, and if that is overlapping with some potential areas of development for the district on the south. Sorry, I guess yeah, it'd be the southwest end according to the picture. Just a little bump out at the bottom. Lori, do you know anything about that? Can we cut that piece off, or does anybody else have any feedback about that?
Do they follow, is that the park boundary?
It is a park boundary, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Barkle, did you have something?
Yeah, it's just noting that the boundaries for the Priest Camp don't seem to follow any property lines or any marks on the GIS system. Is it?
Do with the parks that are on the GIS.
You have to, and it's so it overlaps all sorts of different property lines and stuff. Okay.
It's all district land now.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Melvin. Councillor Peak.
Thank you. So if I look at, and I'm going to show with my pen if you don't mind. What road is this?
That's South Victoria. Graham, can you see that?
So this is the terraces, the Sunset Terraces or whatever they are?
So.
Oh, maybe that's something.
That's Pier Drive. Yeah, that's Unisys at Water.
Pier Drive.
So all this is designated in all the slides and they're all designated parkland and they're all municipally owned, district owned. Okay. Is it possible to include something that's not district owned? That's a designated parkland? I'm thinking of the Trout Creek Reserve. Or would the province have to include that?
Yeah, it would be whoever is the managing authority over the land has to be the one to essentially register it, and we would facilitate that process. But we can only facilitate the process for managing authorities of the land.
Okay, but if it's within municipal boundaries, so we would have no say in that?
Still, you could give your support, for example, but if it's provincially owned land, then the province would be in charge of that.
So how do we tell the province that we think that Trout Creek Reserve, their reserve ought to be included in it?
We have contacts with the province for this program, so we reach out to our contact, and we would obviously copy Laurie, the director, on any correspondence, and we would ask them to consider that and make sure Laurie is aware of our correspondence.
Okay, that's good. Councillor Chair.
If there's no further questions, I'll bring forward the resolution presented with the removal of Cartwright Mountain. Oh, which one were we removing again? Cartwright Mountain Parkland.
Okay, do we have a second for that? Councillor Alphen? And I don't mean to be pedantic, but it's Adams Bird Sanctuary, not Adams Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe we could just get that resolution up on the screen.
Missed that. Sorry.
Okay, so there's the resolution. Any further discussion? Councillor Betts.
Thank you for the opportunity. So in just asking, we took it out for the time being, but how would we go about adding it in the future? If we would like to.
I think it would just be a future council resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simple as that, yeah. Reach out to us or the Environment and Climate Change Canada.
Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Well, if you're not sure, I'm not sure. I think that's all in favor, and then you don't vote. Moving on to the next item, Living Memorial Park advertising. Laurie.
Thank you. The Summerland Minor Baseball Association has submitted a request to the District of Summerland to facilitate advertising opportunities at Living Memorial Park. The advertising program would raise funds for park maintenance, keep the costs for the players low, and support program growth. The SMBA has proposed terms that include that signs would be placed on outfield fences or other designated areas in Living Memorial Park as approved by the district. The SMBA would be responsible for sign production, installation costs, and removal. Signs would be manufactured to be guaranteed to withstand weather and general outdoor wear for 3 years minimum. Signs would be replaced after 3 years. There are 3 advertising opportunities proposed. A standard sign to sell for $500 a year, large sign to sell for $750 a year, and a premium sign on the scoreboard for $2,000 a year. The draft agreement, as referenced in attachment 1 of the council agenda, proposes a term of 3 years with an option for 1 additional period of 3 years to align with proposed option for advertisers to commit to a 3-year term. The SMBA would provide the district all financial information upon request. The SMBA shall not solicit or accept advertising from individuals, companies, or organizations whose products or advertising are deemed, at the sole discretion of the district, to be in violation of the Canadian Code of Advertising Standards, in conflict with values of the local community, deemed appropriate for a venue for youth, deemed controversial in nature, or in contravention of federal or provincial laws or bylaws and/or policies of the district. And there are termination options for both the district and the SMBA outlined in the agreement. The SMBA is proposing, as outlined in option 1, that the district receive an advertising fee of $100 per advertising opportunity, and that the district waive the fee in 2026 to contribute to the Field 96 project. The SMBA retain the remaining revenues to fund field restoration, maintenance, equipment requirements, and program development. Alternatively, council may choose option 2, that the district receive increased advertising fees for higher priced advertising opportunities, and that the district receive advertising fees immediately starting in 2026. Council may also propose and endorse any other options that you wish to bring forward. The Summerland Minor Baseball Association is targeting to sell 20 to 30 signs. However, this will be dependent on how local businesses and organizations respond to this opportunity. This could bring in $2,000 to $3,000 per year to the District of Summerland with the $100 per sign contribution. Currently, signs are not identified in the District of Summerland bylaw, sign bylaw, to be permitted in public parks, and the parks bylaw does not allow for soliciting business in a park without a permit. Should council endorse advertising at Living Memorial Park, it is recommended that the sign bylaw be updated to add sports fields to be exempt from requiring a sign permit in section 4.3 of the bylaw, provided they are authorized by the district. After council provides direction, staff will proceed with amending the fees and charges bylaw for council's review and will execute an advertising agreement for the Summerland Minor Baseball Association. The sign bylaw amendment would likely come forward to council when this bylaw is slated for a full update in the future. But in the meantime, the council resolution will provide authority to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Van Elsen.
Thank you. Question through to our director. Are we going to do the same for Summerland Minor Hockey? Summerland Minor Hockey, I believe, has the boards on the ice surface, and they pay a part of that goes to the district. Are we prepared to do the same for Summerland Minor Hockey as the baseball people?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Elfen, we do have, it's already in our fees and charges bylaw for $100 per rink board goes to the District of Summerland. So we do collect that fee currently.
Anyone else? Councillor Betts?
Thank you. So I can see how it basically is in direct comparison so that it lines up with how the sign rental works, structure works, and except that the benefit with Summerland Minor Baseball is that they are going to take on the production and installation and removal of signs, so that benefits the district. So I'm willing to go along with that part of the options, but the second part where the district waived the fees starting for 2026, I can't say I'm in favor of that at this time. I feel that the support of the district has been generous, and so I don't feel that way about waiving the fees in the first year.
Councillor Vanellope?
I appreciate what Councillor Betts was saying. That's what I was trying to get to. But yeah, I don't agree with waiving of the $100 fee. And if I'm not mistaken, when I was involved, we're not with minor hockey, but those organizations have those signs created. They're the ones that go and get them made and paid for. It's not the district. The district receives the fee of the $100. So I agree with Councillor Betts that I agree with all of this except for the $100 waiver.
Okay, so would someone like to bring that motion forward?
I'll bring the motion forward. So the option 1, that the district receive an advertising fee of $100 per year per advertising opportunity.
Basically just crossing out the second line.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, and cross out the second line. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Vanellope? Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, that carries. The financial plan amendment, Director of Finance, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the community charter requires municipalities to have a financial plan that is adopted annually. And additionally, the legislation states that the plan may be amended by bylaw at any time. Council adopted the original 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw on March 4th of this year. That plan was amended by a bylaw on June 17th and incorporated financial plan changes from January 1st to May 6th. Since May 6th, Council has made numerous financial decisions that have impacted the financial plan. These decisions need to be incorporated into our financial plan bylaw as required by the community charter. So the proposed financial plan amendment bylaw before you today does just that. The council report summarizes all of the amendments, and I'll touch on 3 as part of my summary to council. The amendment includes the addition of $600,000 to purchase an electric line truck. This replacement purchase is funded by the Electric Capital Reserve. The second item of note is the addition of $185,000 for the Living Memorial Ballpark Field 96 project. This new project was approved by council and matches the grant funding received by Summerland Minor Baseball Association. $100,000 of this project is funded by the Electric Capital Reserve, with the remaining $85,000 funded by removing 2 capital projects from the general fund 5-year capital plan. And the third item of note incorporates the addition of ICBC grant funding for 3 road projects totaling $97,300. So in total, there are 10 adjustments taken into account with this bylaw amendment, and it's ready for first 3 readings. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Someone like to bring it forward? Councillor Betts, second. Councillor Peak, any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Bylaws for adoption, MRDT. Someone like to bring that forward? Councillor Traynor, Councillor Vanellope. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed, that carries. Items removed from consent agenda, UBCM resolutions. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought this one was worthwhile in bringing forward because it was the provincial responses to our resolutions that had been brought forward at the UBCM resolution session in 2024. And it was nice to see the follow-up and whether or not there was actually any concrete response. Notably, the province seemed acknowledging that the bylaw, the ability to increase fees seemed favorable. The produce stickers, there seems to be an open discussion happening at the federal, provincial level and internationally to move towards compostable stickers. as compared to plastic, how it's gumming up everybody's compost processing. Grant processing timelines didn't seem like that produced any significant and measurable changes. And with servicing agriculture land, that there is no foreseeable funding changes coming our direction. So I appreciate that we're continuing the conversation in new and creative ways. But I just thought that council's approach to these motions was really important and that it got a fair amount of discussion at UBCM 2024. So I was grateful to see the response from the province. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No, so we'll just need a motion to receive that. Yeah, Councillor Betts, Councillor Van Elfen, call the question, all in favor? And now like a resolution to close the meeting to the public pursuant to sections 91A, C, E, G, and K, and 92B of the community charter. Councillor Betts, Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor? That carries. And why don't we just take a 5-minute break or so, and then we'll be back.